Today we're going to be talking about crinoids, the Missouri state fossil. I think you're going to find it cool. You probably like to see fossils. I'm going to show you just one to get your attention. That is this fossil that I found. It's my favorite. I found this at Bull Creek. This is loaded with crinoid fossils. And what you'll see here is you can see the little stems here, in view, side view, and I'm going to show you what those are. But you can think of that as a spine of an animal, and it is an animal. So the Earth was created somewhere around 4.5 billion years ago, and as it cooled off, it formed the surface that we now know. And 350 million years ago, that's a big number. 350 million years ago, the Pangea was all of the continents, all of the surface of the Earth. And now we can tell by looking at the minerals where these were. So here was United States, Mexico, slammed up against Brazil, Algeria, Greenland. Here's Russia. And what happened over time, then these separated, gradually separated. So the United States and Mexico were separated from Brazil, and all of that was moving very slowly over millions and millions and millions of years. So during the Mississippian, it's easy for me to say, the Mississippian period, 350 million years ago, the land that is now the United States was covered for a large part by a shallow inland sea. So here was the ocean. Florida is deep under the ocean here. So is part of Texas. And up here, Minnesota, Illinois were out of the water. But the shallow inland sea covered all this area. And here we are in Missouri. And that lasted for a long time, many millions of years. So, and the prime thing that lived in the ocean, there were lots of various things that were very early, primitive animals and plants, but this was a typical crinoid fossil. So it has the stem that you see here, kind of like a spine, and then it has this feathery part that looks like a flower, but it's really an animal. So up close, this is what you would see of its anatomy. These are arms, and they're feathery, and they have a groove down the center of the arm, so that if it collects something here, it can travel down that groove into the arboreal cup, which we're going to talk about. And it actually had nerves. It had nerves here, would be not really a brain, but that's where the nerves centered, and they went out on these arms. Now these arms, they were filter feeders, so they would be filtering through the water, and when they would pick up algae or small organisms or detritus, which means rotten stuff, dead stuff, it could pick those up, put that in the groove, and bring it down here to its mouth. This columnal, many of them had a long stalk like this and a holdfast. These were essentially feet that held it to the ground and would keep it in one place. Not all of them had that. So this is the real poop on how they ate. Remember those branched arms that we're talking about? So those branched arms would be going way up here, all around, and they would bring the food down through the groove and into the mouth. Here's the mouth. So that food would come into the mouth. It would then go through a U-shaped or horseshoe-shaped intestine like this and come back up, and then the poop would come out the anus, which was up here. So that's the way they ate. Food in, digested, and waste out. So the skeleton of these was actually calcium carbonate. So it's very much like chalk, like your chalk that you use on a blackboard, like limestone. Basically, it was very crunchy, so it wasn't a lot of things that could eat these. 80% of its body was held together by ligaments. So you had these calcium little rings right here, for instance. Each of those rings was held together with ligaments. You can think of that kind of like your finger, how your fingers, parts of your finger are held together by ligaments so they flex. The body of this was covered by a very thin skin or membrane. Now, they peaked in the Pennsylvanian period about 290 million years ago. That's when they had the most of them throughout those shallow seas, not in the deep ocean, but in the shallow seas. And in 251 BC, 251 million years ago, an asteroid crashed into the ocean. It blocked out the sun for a long period of time because sunlight couldn't get through the clouds. And in doing so, it was a great extinction we talked about recently, where we talked about how everything died off at that time. That was what knocked off all the dinosaurs. And that knocked off almost all of these. So the crinoids pretty much disappeared there. There's a few that are left. These are modern ones that have been photographed. They usually exist deep in the ocean where you have to have special equipment or submarines, research submarines to see them. They did show that this one could move 2 feet per hour by drifting along with its little holdfast moving those. This is what the stems look like when they're fossilized. So this, what happens is the material of the crinoid stays. You've got the hard parts that stay. They're replaced by stone. And so that it's kind of like it's a mold, if you would. So this is a picture from one of my crinoids. This is the center of that stem. And so each of those pieces of the stem, if you broke off, looks like this. This is highly magnified. Here's a side view of that stem. And you'll be seeing that in some of the fossils that I'm going to be showing you. So this is my favorite fossil again. And again, you can see that the stem here, you can see the side view of the stem, you can see the center view, the round view, the little thing that connects them. And I'll bring some of those in for you to see. And we'll get you a chance to have them in your hand. So that's all about crinoid, the Missouri state fossil. Our limestone, by the way, our limestone that you see for construction material, the material that we make cement out of, the gravel on a gravel road, all of those are limestone. And if you are like on our gravel bar, if you look close enough, you may see a fossil in any of those stones. So that's all for now.